Welcome back to the Megyn Kelly Show. There have been 2 straight weeks of massive fallout since the debate last month. My next guest debated President Joe Biden several times, but perhaps a different version of him back in 2020. Plus, Donald Trump is expected to announce a VP pick very soon, and this person has been mentioned as a potential for that slot as well. Tulsi Gabbard is here with me. Her book is For Love of Country, Leave the Democrat Party Behind, and it's available right now. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Do you think America's headed in the right direction? Unfortunately, the next generation does not understand the values that have made America the greatest nation on earth. But PragerU is helping to counter that. PragerU is a conservative nonprofit that promotes American values through educational videos, they're amazing, that reach millions of young people every single day. You can learn anything on PragerU. Just spend some time going around and you'll see so many fun videos that will be interesting and educational to you. Right now, PragerU has an amazing opportunity. If you donate any amount, even just $1, they will send you PragerU American flag socks made in the USA as a thank you gift. That's fun. Drive your relatives nuts at Thanksgiving by wearing your PragerU American flag socks and showing them off. Make sure you go to PragerU.com/socks to make your donation. Just $1 will get it done. You can support a great organization and express your love of American values and style while doing so. Your donation will help PragerU reach more people with their videos, which is needed now more than ever. Get that messaging out far and wide. Make a 100% tax-deductible donation at PragerU.com/socks and get your socks today. Tulsi, great to see you. How are you?
Thank you, Megyn. It's great to see you. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
You know, I went back last time, like the first time that you were on, not the last time, but the first time you were on, it was before we even had video on the show. You were actually one of our very first episodes, just a couple of months into broadcasting. So it's so fun. Thank you for
congratulations.
Coming back and
Congratulations on all of your growth and your success and how many people you're reaching with the truth at a time when it's becoming increasingly hard to find.
Thank you very much. And back at you. So I guess I should start there. Do you have anything to update us with on the Trump VP search?
No, I think it's accurate, and I believe them when they say he is not likely to announce his decision until just before he has to at the convention. So anybody who says they know what he's going to do, from what I hear, they don't know what they're talking about. This is his decision.
Now, last night, he was in Florida with Marco Rubio. That's, of course, Rubio's home state and the state from which he's a senator. And he did make a comment about Rubio as potential VP. We have that, you guys? We do, I think. It's SOT 25. Listen.
Them back there. Oh, that's a lot, Marco. That's a lot, Marco. I think they probably think I'm going to be announcing that Marco is going to be vice president. I don't know. Because that's a lot of press. That's a lot of press.
Now, I think him even mentioning that Marco could be vice president, and he mentioned it a second time, saying something like, you're going to vote for this policy of mine, but you may or may not be in the Senate, this time next year to do it. I think this is a reason to believe Marco's not getting it, because I don't think Trump would be so on the nose if he were the pick. But what's your take?
I mean, Trump is a master of entertainment and drawing out this kind of version of a reality show that we're watching play out here. So, I'm not going to pretend to know how he's thinking or what he's doing, but I'll tell you my own opinion on Marco Rubio. I think it would be a huge mistake for President Trump to choose him because he represents the neocon warmongering establishment of Washington, D.C., which stands diametrically opposed to the very policies that President Trump has always stood for, going all the way back to when he ran for president in 2016 through that first term in office, and the things that he's talking about wanting to do now. And it would send the wrong message to a lot of folks who are very concerned about the fact that we are on the brink of war with Russia and China and Iran and North Korea. We're closer to the brink of nuclear Armageddon than we ever have been before. They're concerned that like last time, Trump may surround himself with neocon warmongers who are going to undermine the foreign policy that he is advocating for every step of the way. And if Marco Rubio is his vice president, then that is what we will face, and it will cause a lot of people to question what kind of foreign policy will actually be executed. Will it be the one that Trump wants and stands for, or will it be one that will continue the deep state neocon warmongers who've gotten us into the mess that we are in now?
I mean, it does make you think, what does he gain with Marco Rubio? He doesn't need his help in Florida. Yes, he's more establishment, but it's not like Marco Rubio is the most beloved establishment. I mean, if you just want to I got to bite the bullet and get the establishment, I guess you go with Nikki Haley, who at least ran. But do you get something more with Marco? Okay, he's Hispanic. Trump's already doing very well with Hispanics without Marco. So I see your analysis, perfectly. I still think J.D. Vance is probably, one of the favorites. But let me throw this your way, because Axios reports as follows, that in the wake of the disastrous debate by Joe Biden, former President Trump, they report, is adjusting his agenda, the GOP platform, his vice presidential plans, even his debate style to win over more than half a dozen persuadable voter groups in 7 states, advisors tell us. Examples: Trump personally edited the GOP platform and is lying low following Biden's debate performance, notwithstanding many attempts to bait him into doing or saying something controversial by Joe Biden. He's been quiet. On the abortion thing, Trump rolled the RNC on abortion. The platform does not call for a nationwide ban now for the first time in 40 years. Trump removed that. And he also took out the part that refers to marriage as a traditional marriage between one man and one woman. So that's one of the ways in which he's trying to win these, allegedly, according to Axios, these swing state voters. And it says he is targeting working class white voters, security-focused moms, Hispanic working class men, and Nevada bartenders angered by high taxes on tips. He's dropped his retribution threats and January 6th celebrations. Advisors have told him both turn off swing voters. So if you wanted to get, Tulsi, working class white voters, security-focused moms, Hispanic working class men, and Nevada bartenders, who would you pick?
Well, I think the key to all of these different groups is the fact that those who are undecided are a relatively small number of people that they've correctly identified in this small number of swing states that will ultimately decide the election. I think you also have to look at those who are political independents, who are, broadly politically homeless, those who are libertarians and who want to make sure that their vote will actually count and make a difference in this election. And then you look at a lot of the voters who are drawn to Bobby Kennedy, but may see that, again, there doesn't appear to be a viable path forward for him to actually win the presidency, and considering what they will do with their vote in a general election. I can tell you, because I know a lot of these people and I've been spending a lot of time with them, not only this election year, but for years. And one of the things that they are very, very concerned about, once again, is our foreign policy. You talk about, the security-focused moms, but there are a lot of people who are really concerned about not only the safety and security of our communities here at home and rampant crime and how we're seeing in many states the laws are favoring the criminals over the victims of these crimes, but also recognizing, again, the heightening tensions and increasing warmongering happening on multiple fronts around the world. They're concerned about what happened in the last Trump administration and how will things be different this time. So there's some trust that has to be earned there, and there's some outreach that has to be done to show what kind of presidency and what kind of cabinet Trump will surround himself with this time, so that people who are undecided and not sure what they're going to do will have an indication of the kind of platform that will actually be executed should Trump win the presidency again.
All right. Now, translated, that means, in my view, who better to choose than a nonpartisan person who served her country honorably and is against the forever wars like Tulsi. I mean, I haven't heard you on the short list, but I hear your point. And even if you don't make it as a potential VP candidate, doesn't mean you wouldn't be in the cabinet. You mentioned RFK, Jay. I do want to share this with the audience because they know I've got this long history with him now. He's been on the program. We helped resurrect him from the wilderness when he couldn't even get a forum in which to espouse his views, which was wrong. But I will tell you, there's a reason he started running as a Democrat. This is for the audience. He is one. He had to run as an independent because the Democrat Party blocked him. But he tweeted this out just 2 days ago or yesterday. Systemic racism against Black Americans is deeply embedded in our prison and legal systems, educational institutions, job markets, access to capital, and beyond. While the moral argument for reparations is compelling, persistent opposition in Congress makes their implementation challenging. However, I'm committed to enacting effective and achievable solutions to uplift Black Americans and will do so immediately as president. I mean, this whole DEI talk by somebody who's trying to curry favor with Republican or right-leaning voters, or even centrists, Tulsi, strikes me as dumb, absolutely just dumb, off message, and tone deaf. What do you think?
Yeah, I think people I am frustrated. I know a lot of people are frustrated about how divisive things have increasingly become over time. And more specifically, again, by those who claim to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King and his dream of encouraging us to see beyond the color of our skin and to judge each other by our character, are some of the very same people who then go on to judge us by the color of our skin and try to divide us by racializing everything. This is one of the reasons why I left the Democratic Party. I dedicate a whole chapter in my book to this very topic because of how destructive and divisive it has become. And it's taken us completely in the wrong direction. I think it's so important. And this is the kind of leadership we need right now in our country, is leaders who will take us back to the basics of what does it mean to be an American? Whether you're Black, white, brown, Hispanic, Polynesian, Asian, whatever it is, what does it mean for us to be Americans? What do we cherish? What do we celebrate in this country? And getting back to those foundational principles of freedom and these principles that are actually under assault today. This is not some, theoretical conversation that's high up in the clouds. Again, this is a very real threat that we're seeing coming from the Biden-Harris administration, the Democrat elite, their friends in the big propaganda media, big tech, social media, all of these different powers that be that are coalescing around how to maintain and preserve their power. The way that they are doing this is by increasingly taking away our fundamental rights and freedoms, undermining the rule of law, and weaponizing our public institutions. So, this is the thing that I believe we must come together around, and where we can come together around, even if we may disagree on, healthcare policy or education policy. The reality is that we won't even be able to have open debate and dialogue around these issues, or to criticize our government's positions on these issues if the Democrat elite continue to have their way, because they'll do what they've been doing to me, to you, and to so many others, which is say, this person is spreading misinformation and disinformation, so we got to shut them up for the greater public good. Which is the mindset. And now
they're going to be able to continue doing that with the government, in cooperation with the government, thanks to the Supreme Court ruling that came out.
Exactly.
Saying, it's fine. You don't have standing to complain. It was a terrible ruling for people like you, like me, like Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who spoke the truth out of Stanford on COVID, and were shut down because of government censorship unleashed through the social media companies, a case that was rejected by the Supreme Court for lack of standing, saying that they had proven no injury. Well, they were injured. And Clarence Thomas's dissent showed that. Yes. Well, I think for me, this kind of thing from RFKJ is a real problem. His stance on women and the trans issue is a real problem. I love what he did about COVID. I love his challenges to the military-industrial complex. I love his distrust of big government institutions. And I actually like that he's focused on the environment to some degree, though some of his statements are pretty wacky on it. But he's got some real problems when it comes to this far left lane of the Democrat Party that's still in him and still supported by him. Not to mention what I read in Maureen Callahan's book, which is called Ask Not. You have to buy it. She came on the show. All right, I want to talk about the Bidens and the debate, both Bidens, because Jill's in the news a lot right now too. I know you watched it. I haven't yet seen you comment on it. I'm sure you have, but just before we say goodbye to the SiriusXM audience, then carry you over to podcast and YouTube, your 1 minute thought on that debate.
It exposed what so many of us have known all along, which is President Biden is not capable of serving as our commander-in-chief. He is unfit to be our president now, what to speak of to be allowed to serve in that position for the next 4 years. This should tell us then that if they are reelected, if a Biden-Harris ticket is reelected, people who vote for that ticket will be voting for a President Kamala Harris, which should then beg the question, is she prepared to be our nation's commander-in-chief, especially at a time, once again, when we are on the brink of war in almost every region around the world and closer to nuclear war than ever before? The answer to that is unequivocally no. She has never been prepared. She shouldn't have been chosen as vice president. She certainly would be destructive and disastrous should she be elevated to that position, whether she's on the top of the ticket or whether she continues to run with Biden as vice president. What we do know for sure, just as we've seen with President Biden, we would see the same with Kamala Harris, and frankly, anyone else they may try to put up as a last-ditch effort. It's not them who are making the decisions. It is the bureaucrats, administrative state, the deep state, the Tony Blinkens, the Hillary Clintons, the Jake Sullivans, who are the puppeteers who are making the decisions about the future of our country. And
none of whom we elected
don't get to hold them accountable.
All right, stand by. Do you ever think to yourself, how can I work so hard and still be in debt? The piles of overdue bills, the threatening phone calls, never having money to do anything. It just won't stop. If you're trapped in debt, Done with Debt can be a way out. They have developed aggressive new strategies to end your debt permanently. Done with Debt stands between you and your harassing bill collectors. They tirelessly negotiate with your creditors to lower or even forgive what you owe. And they do it all without bankruptcy or new loans. One client said, "One phone call saved us a fortune. I wish we had done this long ago." Done with Debt has unique strategies to get you out of debt faster and put more money in your pocket every month. But you do need to hurry because some of the debt solutions are time sensitive and you don't want to miss out. Visit donewithdebt.com. Speak with one of their debt relief strategists for free. What do you have to lose? Except your debt. Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com.
Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
On the subject of Kamala Harris, you've debated her, you know her. She was very nasty to you in the last go round. What kind of a person is she?
I'm smiling as I'm remembering in the big famous debate moment that we had in the exchange that we had that. I can't even tell you how many people stop me who say that is how they know me from that exchange we had, where I simply held her to account for her record on criminal justice that she was touting, she was so proud of, and exposed the truth about the harm that she had done when she was in a position to actually help people and bring about positive reform. I was remembering right after that debate happened, she went back into the spin room and she was asked a question. I forget which network, it was CNN or MSNBC. They were asking her a follow-up about her record and about what I had questioned her on. And her response was, well, I'm not going to comment on someone who is not a top tier candidate for president. Ugh. And to me, that kind of illustrates what kind of person she actually is.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the Democrats are doing right now? Because we have Nancy Pelosi now refusing to say that Joe Biden should stay in. She was asked over and over, and it was pretty explicit. I'll just pull it up so I give you the exact language. The question on MSNBC by Jonathan Lemire was, does he have your support to be the head of the Democrats? It's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. She doesn't say yes. Then he follows up. He's said he made the decision. He said it firmly this week. He's going to run. Do you want him to run? I want him to do whatever he decides to do. And that's the way it is. Whatever he decides, we'll go with. So once again, she didn't say, yes, I want him to run. Now you have James Clyburn refusing to say to the Washington Post whether Joe Biden's decision to stay in is final. He's National Campaign co-chairman. He says, ask him. So there's daylight starting to open up. And you've got Joe Manchin saying, just wait to the end of this week. Just wait. You got George Clooney coming out at the Times saying, I love him, but he's got to go. And at that fundraiser 3 weeks ago, I saw the Joe Biden that you all saw in the debate. Like, he must go. Yeah. He cannot win. The polls showing that he will not only lose, he will bring the House and the Senate into Republican control. So, you know, Democratic politics better than most. What's going to happen?
You know, I think that the powers that be, who are obviously not many of these elected officials who are standing out there basically shrugging their shoulders, saying that they will, basically the read between the lines is, whether it's Nancy Pelosi or Clyburn or any of these other people, they are waiting to be told what to do. They are waiting to be to get their marching orders from the powers that be behind the curtains, who are trying to decide which is going to be their winning horse in this race. They don't really care about Joe Biden. They don't really care about Kamala Harris or anyone else. Their goal is just to win so that they can stay in power. They don't care about policies or record or effectiveness or qualification or any of the things that we as voters would like to see in our candidate for the presidency. It's all about their preservation of power. So nothing would surprise me at this point if they go ahead and basically threaten Joe Biden with the leverage of money and saying, hey, you're not going to have any support if you continue down this road, or if they choose someone else by showering them with support. I just think it's important that voters don't be distracted by whatever the chess moves are that they are going to make. Just know for sure and with confidence that whatever front man they put forward, it's going to be more of the exact same insanity, woke, racializing everything, radical, warmongering policies that the Biden-Harris administration has shown us that they are doing in the last 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have no doubt. There are reports coming out now. We heard the reports immediately after the debate that it's really Jill. She's the only one who can convince him not to do this, not to stay on. I mean, I think he should go right now. I don't think he should be the sitting president for 1 minute longer. He should be 25th Amendmented right out of office. He does not belong there. But she also is obviously power hungry and is not taking care of her husband, who appears infirm to me. She clearly wants the power. And now there are a couple of reports about her. We showed the audience a picture of her a couple of years ago in advance of the G7. She's sitting in his chair with his jacket over the chair, getting ready for the G7. Now we have news that she's sitting in on Oval Office meetings. Kevin McCarthy gave an interview on Fox News yesterday and said that Jill Biden is sitting in on Oval Office meetings herself. That led to this question that was asked of Karine Jean-Pierre about Jill's role in the White House on Tuesday. Watch this in SOT 13.
Kevin McCarthy just said that when he was the speaker, many times when we had meetings in the Oval Office, Jill was there as well. When the First Lady's in these meetings, is she making decisions or is she just advising the president?
No, the president is the president of the United States. He makes decisions.
You tell me, what is the First Lady doing there with the Speaker of the House discussing policy? This is obviously, this wouldn't have been newsworthy, which Kevin McCarthy would know if they were just glad handing and saying Merry Christmas. This is very clearly policy discussions. What the hell is the First Lady doing in there?
Yeah, seeing Karine Jean-Pierre's response, anybody who saw the debate, anybody who's been paying attention for the last few years knows that's a lie. It's a lie. Because we've seen that he is incapable of even communicating very simple things that you can tell he wants to try to communicate. The crux of what is so wrong about all of this, once again, is that voters elected Joe Biden into office, and we can't say exactly who that person is who's making those decisions. So is it Jill Biden or is there someone else in the room? We're hearing Hunter Biden is now in these rooms and has now become an advisor of a close advisor to the president. it comes down to accountability. And if voters don't have any idea who is actually making those decisions, and it's any one of a number or group of unelected individuals, then that directly contravenes our Constitution and our democratic republic and our ability as voters to ensure that we have the government that we chose to put in place. And so that's going to continue to be an issue. And once again, when you look at some of the focus and the headlines around President Biden's speech before NATO this past couple of days, they're not focusing on the substance of what he's saying, which is actually very seriously consequential, the speech that someone wrote for him to say. Instead, they're saying, could he finish a sentence? Did he actually deliver a speech without stumbling? The substance has been shoved to the side, once again, distracting us from what is actually most important to all of us right now here in this country.
I want to get to
that.
You're the perfect person to ask about what he was saying about NATO and Ukraine, which that's up next. But let me spend one more minute on Jill, because I don't know who she thinks she is, but I do think it might be someone with real power, and it shouldn't be. She's another Hillary Clinton who thinks it's a co-presidency. There was news that got recirculated this week. It actually was broken by the Washington Examiner in January of 2022 that she wanted her own Hail to the Chief song, and it happened. It's called Fanfare for the First Lady, and it was being played for her over and over again. The Washington Examiner reporting that the Marine Corps band was instructed last fall, they wrote, to come up with an entrance theme for the First Lady, that the band now has in its repertoire an original composition titled Fanfare for the First Lady. The song, according to their source, is an original composition, and it's essentially Jill Biden's personal Hail to the Chief. This has caused, they report, amusement and confusion within the band, with some remarking that in the many years they've played in the group, this is the first time the group has had to provide the First Lady with an exclusive entrance theme. The White House at the time denied it and said, well, she never asked anyone to create it. The band approached the White House with this proposal. But again, that doesn't square with the reports that the band is very confused about why they're playing a song for her at all. And to top it all off, Tulsi, it's a terrible song. Listen to a little bit of this. Everyone's standing like she's the president. Literally sounds like something my fifth grade band could have played. But the point is her ego is out of control.
To again, I mean, there's just the lies that come from this White House are so egregious. They really think we're stupid, and that somehow the Marine Corps band that serves across administrations all of a sudden had a novel idea to create an entrance song for the First Lady for the very first time is just madness in my view. But also when you look at, okay, so if it's Jill Biden or it's her staff or whoever it may have been, Megyn, I don't know about you, but I have never walked into a room and thought, oh my gosh, I need music to hail my entrance into this room and to let the audience know I have arrived. Exactly. It's like this it is that mindset of arrogance and of being so self-absorbed and really thinking it's about you rather than the people that you're there to serve. Even as First Lady, that is a job of service to the American people. And it's not about you. So why would you want to draw this attention to yourself? The only explanation is exactly what you said. It is about power and thinking that this world revolves around her and the husband that she's propping up rather than the people that they're supposed to be serving.
It's the same thing that makes her insist on being called doctor. Even though she only has an advanced degree in education, she is not a medical doctor. The same thing, this necessary buildup of her ego that insists on that insists on a song and the trumpets, and that insists on her frail, non-compos mentis husband staying in the presidency, even if it means he will exit the public stage in humiliation, in utter humiliation.
It's really sad. That was the feeling that I felt so much throughout that debate, was just sadness. You know, I've known Joe Biden for a long time, and really, really sad to see him standing on that stage when, for so many reasons, he has no business being there.
So on to the substance of President Biden this week with NATO. There's plenty of videos out there of him slurring and stumbling on his words. Our audience have seen it many, many times. So trust me, it's out there. But you're right. Substantively, he's digging in on, Tulsi, the Ukraine war is lost. And we're just not being honest about it in the media, and certainly not from the White House. We're pouring more and more. It's good money after bad. It's not that we don't have sympathy for the Ukrainian people. It's just at some point you've got to realize when you've lost, and then you have to cut those losses. And this president, he could take that lesson personally, and he could take that lesson when it comes to Ukraine, but boy, he went a different way when NATO came to town this week. Here he is at the summit on Tuesday, SOT 40.
Before this war, Putin thought NATO would break. Today, NATO is stronger than it's ever been in its history. When this senseless war began, Ukraine was a free country. Today, it is still a free country. And the war will end with Ukraine remaining a free and independent country. Russia will not prevail. Ukraine will prevail.
What did you make of it?
There's two major points here. Number one is President Biden simply making the statement that Ukraine will prevail, Russia will not prevail, does not make it so. He is being dishonest with the American people and being dishonest with the people of Ukraine, who he claims to care about. This war will continue to go on as a war of attrition. Many, many more Ukrainians will needlessly be killed in a war that you and I and many others have known from the very beginning would only end with a negotiated treaty. There are so many reasons why this is the case. They have been proved out throughout the almost 2 years now that this war has been waged. Russia has a strong military-industrial complex. They have many, many more troops than Ukraine will ever be able to muster, and they are already running out of able-bodied men who are willing to go and fight. And they're essentially kidnapping men off the streets now and forcing them to fight, and making it so that those who fled Ukraine because they didn't want to fight in this war are being forced to come back into the country. Russia has already rebuilt and reconstituted their military to a point where they are stronger now, both in hardware and in manpower, than they were when they started this war, when they invaded Ukraine, which obviously was wrong, but this is the reality that we are facing. So for President Biden to say this, to make this statement, promising our taxpayer dollars, as we know, some NATO allies are looking at sending in their troops, which, if anything happened to a single one of their troops, would invoke Article 5 and force us to get involved. He's being dishonest with the American people about the cost, both of our taxpayer dollars and our security. The longer this goes on, the more it continues to escalate, as President Biden is escalating this proxy war, which ultimately is about regime change in Russia. The closer we get to nuclear Armageddon, and we are already closer than we ever have been before. The other point that I think is really important to make here is, as you said, Megyn, we do care about the people of Ukraine and their plight and the destruction and the loss that they are experiencing. Those who really care about the people of Ukraine, if President Biden really cared, he would have led those negotiations to end this war a long time ago. We have the leverage to be able to do it. Lastly, he talks about Ukraine is free and will remain free. What does that freedom look like? Well, in a free Ukraine under President Zelensky, he has dismantled, disbarred, and imprisoned any major political opposition individuals or political parties. Anytime they stand up and start to challenge him, he uses his Department of Justice to ban their existence and to seize their assets. He just did it again recently, a few weeks ago. He has taken total control of all of the media in Ukraine. It is now a government-controlled media and government-controlled messaging. He has gone after, I think is the second largest church in Ukraine and banned them and shut them down. He has canceled elections so that anyone who wanted to challenge him and his leadership and the decisions that he's making is not even have the opportunity to do so. So how can you say this is a free country? And secondly, we look at, well, how does that apply to, why should we care? Why should we care about what Zelensky is doing there when we have our own president saying that we are defending Ukraine's democracy and we're defending Ukraine's freedom? Well, if that's what he thinks is freedom and democracy, we got to pay really close attention to what they are doing here at home and how willing they may be to claim a state of war and martial law and cancel our own elections and defy our own constitution, because this is what freedom is to President Biden and his administration.
You know, one of the claims that Joe Biden made at that debate that, again, we didn't really get to because we were all slack-jawed at the actual condition of our president was he continued to raise the blowback that he orchestrated against Russia and said, I shut Putin down. I'm the guy who shut Putin down. And you couldn't help, he said this in the Stephanopoulos and he said in the debate too, and you couldn't help but think, wait a minute, because first of all, you created a condition in which it was provocative for
yes.
Putin, and that he believed, yes, based on your own words, which we don't know whether you knew you uttered or not, about, well, if it's a minor incursion, that he could do this and get away with it. He saw what happened with Afghanistan and the disastrous withdrawal and how weakened the United States was. And then he acted. And then it is true that we led a worldwide effort to impose sanctions on Russia. And Joe Biden said, let's wait to see how he is in 18 months. Wait to see how Putin is in 18 months after all my sanctions. Well, the reports are, and I confess I haven't been following it that closely. I'm sure you have because you've been talking about it a lot. Their economy is doing fine. They suffered a bit, but they've made up a lot of the revenue and the war funding that they've been doing. And they are just trading with different partners now and not the Europeans. And Putin seems like he's doing, maybe not spectacularly, but fine. And certainly hasn't been brought to his knees by anything we've done.
It's a fact. It's a fact. The fact that Joe Biden is gloating about the expansion of NATO, really what he is gloating about is the fact that he has made us, the American people, and the world far less safe, because by doing so knowingly, and history tells us this is true, the red line has always been around, for Russia, has always been around how they view an expansion of NATO encroaching around their borders as a red line and as an existential threat to their security. It's been very clear since before Putin was ever even in power, and it still remains true today. We look at how we would feel if we were in a similar situation. We would also be concerned about such an existential threat. So the fact that even before Putin invaded Ukraine, you had Kamala Harris once again out there in a very provocative way, promising that Ukraine would become a member of NATO. Tony Blinken recently, again, promised Ukraine will become a member of NATO. So where does this road lead? It leads to one that is more dangerous than many people can even imagine, and one that President Biden is lying to the American people about. You hear all of this bluster as he's trying to project strength, but what he's actually doing is putting the interest of the military-industrial complex and his own facade of bravado and power ahead of our own safety and security and our ability to even think about having a world to live in tomorrow. No one talks about nuclear war these days, which should be a red flag to everyone, given we are closer to the brink of nuclear war than ever before. And President Putin has made no bones about the fact that they are running nuclear armament drills and that their laws have been changed to say if we face an existential threat, we are authorized to use nuclear weapons. What that would kick off in the world is unimaginable when we think about the last 20 years of war we've seen in Afghanistan and Iraq. We look at the cost of war, the cause of the blast itself, children's skin melting off in the streets. You have the nuclear winter that follows for anyone who survives that initial blast. Ronald Reagan was 100% correct and understood the seriousness of this when he said a nuclear war cannot be won and should never be fought. We should heed those words very carefully now, because quite literally, the very future of humanity and this planet are what is at stake because of what Joe Biden has done.
And here's what's scary on top of, all the things we just outlined. You've got a president right now who abandons strategic ambiguity on Taiwan only to then claim through a White House spokesperson that he hadn't, right? He changed our posture toward this region in a way that was apparently inadvertent over and over, just by side comments he made. He made the comments that I referenced about minor incursion before Putin invaded Ukraine. And he continues to make provocative comments about other powder keg areas in the world. On top of all this, as the commander in chief, he doesn't seem to know that people have died on his watch. And that was another stunning moment from the debate. It was not atypical. He couldn't even remember, when he was asked, did you watch the debate by Stephanopoulos? He said, I don't know if I did. I don't remember if I did. You don't remember if you watched the debate? It just happened days ago. What do you mean you don't remember? You don't know? And he didn't remember that we'd lost some 16 troops on his watch, 13 and the disastrous Afghanistan pullout, and then 3 more in Jordan. So that's our president right now, Tulsi, who's saying provocative things, potentially getting us into wars, and that's not even nuclear war yet, and not even keeping track or able to keep track of the blood and treasure we're spending.
And he's the one who has the nuclear codes. Just let that sit for a moment. This guy is the guy who holds the nuclear codes and holds our future in the balance. You talked about, the fact that he could not remember that any service member had been killed under his administration. That was a punch in the gut to me. I cannot even imagine how these Gold Star families felt as they watched this, knowing that their sons and daughters' commander-in-chief was so unaffected by the ultimate price, that ultimate sacrifice that their daughter or son or brother and sister made in service to our country, that speaking to over 50 million American people, he could not remember their sacrifice. Over and over, there are so many reasons why I agree with you. He should not be commander-in-chief today. Every single day that goes by, we face great risk to our safety, our security, our ability to live in a peaceful and free and prosperous society, so long as this guy is in power. And also, even if they replace him with Kamala Harris, she may be able to sometimes string together a coherent sentence, but she will be just as dangerous in her foreign policy because, once again, Biden's not really calling the shots here. Kamala Harris won't be really calling the shots. The very same people who have gotten us here, who got us into Iraq, who got us through that horrific withdrawal from Afghanistan, all of these people are still there, and they are still the shot callers when it comes to our security and our freedom, which is why we have to vote them out of office this November, whoever is on that ticket.
And it's amazing. It's an amazing opportunity to do it because thanks to the Supreme Court and some of its rulings over the past term, limiting the power of the agencies within the executive branch, they're being neutered. And things are going to be very different for all these executive agencies if we get a president in there who understands how to do it, and ideally a Congress that knows how to do it. And now, courts. I mean, that's the other big power of the presidency, to nominate federal judges and get the bench filled with judges who understand the limited role of government. All right, last question before I let you go. So what's likely to happen? They keep saying wait until this weekend. They really are short on time. Do you have a prediction on what the Democrats do?
I don't. I know that Joe Biden and Jill Biden are not going to go out without a fight. We will see what happens as they make these decisions. Again, I just think, we if they choose a different horse, we can't be distracted by the trappings of what's really going on. We got to stay focused on what's real, who's pulling the strings behind the curtain, because those people are not going to change no matter what horse they decide to run in this election. And that's what I'm going to keep telling voters between now and Election Day, because what's at stake is the most serious thing that I've ever experienced in my life: our ability to live in a free society, our ability to be able to have a vibrant, open marketplace of ideas and a vibrant democracy, our ability to not have to live in fear of the very real potential and likelihood of multiple wars and nuclear Armageddon. This is what is on the line in this election.
So maybe a different horse, but it's going to be the same stable, same clothing, same jockey, same people in control of said horse. Tulsi Gabbard, pleasure to see you again. Again, her book is called For Love of Country. And the sub is Leave the Democrat Party Behind. For Love of Country, leave the Democrat Party behind, as she did. She put her money where her mouth is. All right, we'll see you soon, I hope. And all the best to all of you. Thank you so much for being with us. To be continued right here as well.